Hey there, listeners. Welcome to the Leadership is Changing podcast. My name is Denis Gianoutsos and I'm your host. In our world full of big problems and opportunities to make things better, every single person's voice really matters. Now, the statement or the title of this episode, Be the Voice of Change, tells us we all can make a difference. Today's episode is about how to use your voice and speak up in a way that your voice is heard and it really counts. So let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Welcome to the Ask Denis episode. It's a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts and experiences and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. So listeners, how are your goals coming along for you? It's amazing how much time is already flying by us. Look, I have the pleasure of working with many leaders globally, whether it's one-on-one or teams. But there's a question that I ask, and the question is your voice being heard above the noise? As I've said before, there's a lot of noise out there, but is your voice being heard over that noise? And if not, what's holding you back? Now, recently I posted a quote on social media, and the quote was, "Be the voice of change." And for those of you who know me, I had a health scare a few years back where they found a tumor on my left vocal cord. So the voice, that tool, is really important for me, but it's already important for my voice to be heard, but it's important for you as leaders to have your voice developed as a leader to be able to lead change. Now, what do we mean by the power of a single voice? As I said, we're in a world full of challenges and opportunities, and the role of individual voices really helps in shaping societies and driving change, and that cannot be overstated, what I just said there, right? So that the ability to shape societies and drive change cannot be overstated. Be the voice of change is more than just a call to action. It's a philosophy that really empowers every person to recognize their potential to influence and lead change. In today's episode, I want to dive deeper into the essence of using one's voice effectively, and not just in when you're wanting to complain about something or make protest, but in a way that's proactive, constructive, and meaningful. Now, the thing here is that it can be a catalyst for change, and we've got heaps of examples in history where we've got individuals who have used their voice to initiate pivotal changes. We're talking about people like Martin Luther King Jr., and where he had his impassioned speech, right through to people like Steve Jobs, who from Apple introduced us to the iPod or digital music, and then how the iPhone and other things, and how that actually changed our lives as well. It's really clear that when somebody makes courageous steps forward, and when they do that to speak, then they can start to inspire movements and action. Now, the two individuals that I've just talked about, and as I said before, there are many out there, heaps of them out there, they didn't sit back and criticize. They presented their vision, solutions, and they started to rally communities towards a collective action. And you think about that. If they can start doing that, that's pretty massive. Now, there's a misconception out there about power, and that common misconception is that one needs to be in a position of power to effect change. However, real influence often begins at the grassroots levels. Now, you think about this. You think about local communities, because what I actually do say to a lot of people, that there's one thing for you to lead people when you've got a title of manager and so forth. But you imagine trying to lead people in a local community when it's full of volunteers. The local school PPTA or Parents Teachers kind of association, that type of thing, when it's full of volunteers. You try and influence them. That's a different kind of matter. But you know what? It starts at the grassroots, and it starts with local communities through the conversations with your neighbours or kids' sports or kids' sporting games on social media platforms, where a single post has the potential to reach millions. And if you think about in this country or in other countries in their sort of national sporting kind of game, in New Zealand we have rugby, and the All Blacks is a world champion team, and they've done very well. But you know what? It doesn't just start with them. It starts at the grassroots. It starts with the kids' rugby at school and clubs, and then they start to grow, and then they grow, and they go into bigger teams. When they start getting a lot more older and so forth, then they get selected for the sort of local area, then the regional area, and then they may get selected into the national team. But all of that starts with the grassroots. And a lot of that is driven by parents. A lot of that is driven by people who are volunteering their time. But you know what? That's where the voices can be heard. And every individual has a sphere of influence, no matter how small it may be, because it all starts small and then takes off from there. Now, there's 5 different strategies that I want to share with you about having an effective voice. How do you do that? Well, number 1 is I'm going to say to yourself, educate yourself. Keep yourself on the cutting edge. Because you see, knowledge is power. And understanding the issues deeply equips you with the credibility and the ability to make informed arguments and suggestions. The one thing, well, there's a couple things actually I would say to you here is make sure that you're curious and that you keep learning. Ask questions, go and find out, stay on the cutting edge. So number 1, educate yourself. Number 2 is communicate clearly and respectfully. So the impact of your voice really depends on how you express your ideas. Is it clear? Are you respectful? And respectful communication is more likely to be heard and taken seriously if you communicate clearly with that respect. You see, if you learn to speak and present, then that's a great thing for you to do. I think for you as leaders, go and learn to speak and present. Go and learn how to do storytelling. Go and learn how to use examples, how to be upfront, and how do you come across. Because it's not just about you communicating clearly and respectfully, but it's also about you connecting with people. Number 3 is offer solutions. Don't just sit there and criticize. Because, it's really important to highlight possible problems or areas that you see that can be improved. But it's just as important for you to actually propose solutions as well. And so what this approach shows us is that you're not just a critic, but you're a proactive, strategic thinker. In other words, a thought leader. Number 4 is build a community. If you can collaborate with like-minded individuals, you see there's strength in numbers. And a chorus of voices, like that, chorus of voices, can be more impactful than a solo call. Now, if you think about it, a choir is a collective voice, and a choir singing is very powerful. Yes, the individual can be powerful, but when it's a group or a choir together, wow, it's amazing. And I think a lot of leaders are missing this. They really want to be part of a community. They're missing it because we've gone through pandemics and so forth, working from home. They haven't had that ability to be part of a community. So what I want you to do is keep listening over the next few weeks, because I'm going to be sharing with you as listeners how you can be part of a community of leaders globally, because they're going to be launching some things, and I think you'll be really loving to be part of that as well. Number 5, this is the final one around the 5 strategies for an effective voice. Number 5 is lead by example. In other words, be a role model, because actions speak louder than words. Be the change you want to see, demonstrating commitment and integrity. If you don't see things changing or changing quick enough, then do something about it. Don't sit there and criticize. You be the change that you want to see. Now, the ripple effect of a single voice is really important because we talked about the collective voice and we talked about a community, but what about a single voice and the ripple there? Because have you ever thrown a stone into a lake or a pond, one that's really still? It starts to make a ripple, so it has that ripple effect. Or have you been in a massive earthquake and that makes a ripple effect as well? Because sometimes that can actually happen in the ocean and that starts to cause a tsunami. So that's a ripple effect as well. Every major movement began with an individual who dared to speak up. When one person takes a stand, it encourages others to do the same. So creating that ripple effect. Now, your voice can comfort, inspire, challenge, and enlighten others. But it's not just about leading the charge. It's about lighting the path for others to follow. The call to be the voice of change. Be the voice of change is not just an invitation. It's a responsibility. It's an obligation. It's something that you as leaders need to do. It's about stepping forward and not sitting back. Some leaders are holding back. I see it in meetings and things that I'm being part of. They're actually holding back. Step forward. Don't sit back. It's about using our voice not to just be heard, but leading the way towards progress. Now, if we all have this power to be the catalyst for change, and we all have this power to be that catalyst change in our own way, I may do it differently to you, but we all have it. And the thing is, it all starts with a decision to speak up, to engage, and to act. Listeners, let's not wait for change. Let's be that voice that initiates it. Talking about change and talking about a call, here's a call to action for you. In fact, here's two of them. And the thing is that your call to action this week is that what do you need to be or need to do to be the voice of change? So I'd love you to have a think about it and work on this. So what do you need to do to be the voice of change? Do you need to speak up more? Do you need to start thinking about how you can communicate more effectively? Do you need to educate yourself? Do you need to make sure that you're not going in there to look for problems, but you're going in there to offer solutions? And do you need to be part of a community? Do you need to join a mastermind group or another group of thought leaders and so forth? So that's something I'd like you to think about, but also think about what you might need to do, because your voice is really important and matters. Here's the second call to action. It's an offer for you. I currently have 3 coaching spots available. If you're one of those kind of people who want to work on your voice of change and you need someone beside you to help you, guide you, really challenge you and support you in a really great way, then we probably need to talk. Because you see, some of you may be unfulfilled in your current role. You're craving to do something more and you want to do a bigger, more exciting role, but you're unsure of how to make that leap. And also, you may be a leader who really wants to tweak their executive presence or grow it to be a very strong, effective leader whose voice will be of influence and one that's going to help people, but it's also going to be heard at the table. Have you ever been made redundant, or you are just being made redundant and you're not sure where to start? It can be overwhelming. And so would you like to get clarity on your next steps, and would you like to step forward with purpose and confidence? You see, I have a coaching program that I have that has actions that will help you step by step understand and get clarity and give you the courage for you to make the next move, give you the courage to step up and use your voice. So if you're really looking to disrupt the status quo or simply find greater purpose and fulfillment, then my executive coaching program is actually going to really help you. It's going to provide you the tools and the guidance to help you start to make things happen. Now, if this sounds like you, then what I'd like you to do is to feel free to reach out to me and let's get on a free 30-minute strategy call. And let's talk about where you are, where you're wanting to go, what your needs are, and so forth. And then we can talk about how I can actually help you and making that leap and bringing it to life and helping you do it. Hey, listeners. Well, that's it for this episode. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining me on the Leadership is Changing podcast. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.